In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to use the Group Manager. I'm logged in as the administrator, so now I'm going to go to the admin page, and I will scroll down and click on the Group Manager icon to launch the Group Manager. Now in the beginning here, you can see we have a list of the existing groups that we have, and down below we have a couple of tools which let us see which groups have administrator access to certain functions, as well as listing members that have administrator access to certain functions. Let's go over what a group looks like when you configure it. So I'm going to use this board member group here. I'm going to click edit. And when I go in, we can see we've got the group name up here. And then we have a list of pretty much all the applications in the system. So you've got your news, your documents, your discussions, all those different things. And they're separated here on multiple tabs. The member apps are the ones that your standard residents or your HOA members will have access to. These are non-administrative members. So these are all the regular member apps. On the next tab are your admin apps. These are applications that are generally only available to administrators. Things like the member stats or the theme manager. Your regular resident members won't have any reason to go in and ever use those. And the final tab is miscellaneous settings. This allows you to set, there's only a few properties in here you can set right now. This may grow over time, but there are a few settings in here that you can set that would give this group special permissions other than just normal access or no access or administrative access. These allow you to do special things that are at a finer level, let's say, a more granular level of control. And you can just click on the green help icons to get more details about those options. Well, let's go back to the ones you're going to use the most here. On this page, you can see each of these has a pull-down selector. So, for example, the board app. This is the app that lists your board members. These, by the way, not all of these applications are available in all plans. So, if you have the economy plan, for example, some of these may not be listed or may not be applicable. So there will generally always be three options for these. You'll have a none option, a normal option, and an admin option. So none option means this group has no permissions whatsoever to this application. That means if a standard resident is a member of this group, they cannot access the board application. They can't see the list of board members. If this were set to normal, which is the way most of this defaults for a new group, that means they have normal permission or normal privileges. They can go in and access the application. They can see the list of board members, but they don't have any administrative capability. They can't add and delete board members or change the settings of the board app, like who it emails to. So that's basically for the average user. It's almost always going to be normal. Admin privileges means that any member of this group has the ability to control this application at the administrator level. Not only can they go into the app and view the list of board members, but they can add and delete board members. They can change the settings for the app, how it displays, or which email address is used for the email options. They have full control over the application. So what this Group Manager really lets you do is set up subsets of administrative capability. For example, you're probably already familiar with the fact that, especially if you're the person who set up the website, you're the administrator. You have the admin profile that you log into. The admin profile is part of the administrator group. And the administrator group is a special group. You can see listed here. You can't edit it because it always has full administrative capabilities to all applications. You can do anything that the system allows you to do. You have control if you're in the administrator app, if you're in the administrator group, excuse me. These other groups allow you to create subsets of control. So for example, I can say in the board member group, I want them to have administrative ability to the directory. I want them to be able to edit, add and change and delete members or change members' profiles. As a board member, I might also want them to have administrative access to the news app. I want them to be able to go in and add a new news story for the community. And there may be other applications depending on the group. So what you'll probably do for this for using this to create administrative permissions for specific groups, I want to set up a group, let's say, that just has control over the Documents app. So in this case, I might create a group. Let's go back and go through the process here of creating a group. So if you would click on New, and I'm going to put in here Document Manager. And what I want to do is in the Documents app, I want to give this group administrative capability. That means they can add, change, delete documents, any documents. And when I save this group, it adds it to the list here. And now let's say I want to add some members right away. I know I've got 3 members who are going to be managing documents on the website. Right now there are no members listed. I can click on Edit to edit the members. And then in here, I can go in and check the boxes of those members that I want to be document managers. So if I were to check user demo or demo user, whenever demo user logs in, even though they are not an administrator, they will have administrative ability to manage documents because the group they're in, Document Manager, is specifically configured to give them admin privileges for just the Documents app. So if they go into the News app, they won't be able to do anything. But if they go into the Documents app, they'll be able to add and remove documents and do other things that administrators can do. So the other way to do that is to go directly into the member's profile. So this screen, when you're in Group Manager, this is great if you're setting up a new group and you know you have a list of several members that you want to add to the group. Then it makes sense while you're in here, you create the group, you come into this screen. Let me show you again how I got here. I've just created the Document Manager group, and instead of hitting Edit, I can just hit Members. Now actually, if I do hit Edit, there's a Members button up here. So there's a few ways to get into here. But once I go into that member screen, then I can do kind of bulk adding and management. If I need to come in and delete several members from this group, I can do it from here. So this is kind of used when you're setting up a group to begin with, and you know you have a list of members you want to add to it. The other way to do it is, let's say I've got an existing group, it's been around for a while, I've got a bunch of administrators in it, or people who can administer specific applications in this group. And we just got a new resident, and that person wants to be on the document management group. So what I can do is I can just go into the directory, and I'll use demo user again, just because I don't have anybody else set up here. And I can go into that particular user's profile and click on the member groups tab. And now I can add them specifically to the groups I want to add them to. So I would just check the box for Document Manager and save their profile. And now that person would be added to the document management group. Okay, so that goes over the first use of member groups, which is being able to create administrative privileges, but a subset of administrative privileges. In other words, you don't want the user to be a full-on administrator by giving them full access to everything on the site. You just want to give them a subset of places they can manage. So you create a group and give that group admin privileges to just those applications. The second purpose is for group restrictions. So let's go back into Group Manager, and we'll kind of go over how that works. So let's create a new group, and we will call this, well, actually, you know what? We'll use the existing group. So we have board members. This is a good example. We have the board member group, and so let's say we've added our board members to that group. Now let's go into the Documents app, because this would actually be a fairly common real-world example. I have a bunch of documents here that have been edited, they've been entered into the database. So when residents come in, they can see whichever documents they want to view. But let's say, for example, that this one document, sample document up here, let's say this is a special document that only the board is supposed to see. The standard residents are not supposed to be able to view this. What I can do is click on the edit icon. And when I come in here, you're going to see this restrict to field. And you're going to see this throughout the system. There are many applications that use it. News uses it, and a number of calendars use it. There are many places in the system that allow you to take a single item, like a document or a news story or something like that, and restrict it to one or more groups. So in this case, this document is special. It's a special document that only the board is supposed to be able to see. Well, I can limit it to the board by just checking that box and saving it. And what that will do is that will say, this document will not appear in the listing. Let's go back to the listing of documents. When this listing is shown, if you are not a member of the board group, the board members group, you would not see this document if it was restricted to the board member group. Not only could you not see it, you couldn't edit it, of course, if you're just a standard member and don't have administrative abilities, but you wouldn't even see it. So you wouldn't have access to it. So that's kind of the second use of Group Manager and creating groups, is to restrict items. So you can make items hidden from users you don't want to see them. The third use is actually just grouping. There's no actual functional part of it in terms of giving them special capabilities or hiding items or restricting access. It's really just grouping. So for example, we'll use the board member group again. And let's go into mail members, which is where we would go in if we wanted to send like a bulk message to the whole community. There are many options in here to restrict who you're going to send this message to. So in this example, let's say we want to send it just to the board members. I have a special email I want to go out to the board members. So I can say include members of any member group, which is the default. Now we'll just go to all members. It will not look at your member group to decide whether or not you get this email. If I say selected, it gives me the option to choose which groups I want to send to, and I can choose more than one. But in this case, I would just choose board member. And now when I go in and fill in my message and send it, this email will only be sent to members whose profiles are part of the board member group. They've been assigned to the board member group. And so again, if I go into, I'll go into my own profile right now, but if I go into the member groups, this email would only go to people who have had this box checked, who are part of that board member group. While I'm in here, I want to show you something. You'll notice that as the admin, I am the admin user right now. This administrator box cannot be unchecked. And in fact, it tells me when I try to click on it, the admin profile cannot be removed from the administrator group. This is disabled here because as the admin user, that's a special profile and it cannot be removed from the administrator group. This guarantees that the admin profile always has full administrator access, because the worst case scenario would be you remove all the administrator profiles from the administrator group and now no one's an administrator, and you need to be an administrator to assign someone to the administrator group. So you could theoretically back yourself out to where no one has administrative access and there's no one to grant administrative access to somebody. So that's why this is protected and it won't let you remove it. But the other groups could all be checked or unchecked as needed. In the administrator, it's not so useful because they already have access to everything. So those are basically the three main uses for groups. The setting up of administrative privileges, let's say less than full administrative privileges. You want to give certain groups access to certain apps to manage them. And then the second was restrictions, which is you have certain items like a news story or a document that you want to restrict to certain groups of members. And then the last one is grouping, which is just saying I've got a group of members that I want to be able to send an email to. That's probably the biggest example of that grouping. Is when you're sending out an email, a bulk email, you can just pick a group to send it to. The last thing I want to go over is the use of multiple groups. So I want to go back into the directory actually, and then I want to go over to this demo user. And this gets a little tricky. So what happens is, we talked about one of the main uses of this is to give administrative privileges to a certain group of users. For example, to give a group the ability to manage documents. They have admin privileges to the Documents app. So it's possible to belong to multiple groups. You could be a board member and a document manager. Now, let's say, for example, the board members don't have any special privileges in this particular setup. Let's just assume that for this discussion. But we know document managers is set up to give them admin privileges to documents. So how does this work if the person belongs to two groups and one has access to has administrative access to documents and one of these groups does not? In this case, document manager says, yes, you have the ability to manage documents, to add and change and delete documents. But as board member, you have normal privileges. You can just view the list of documents and view the documents. So what it does is, in that case where any one of your groups, if any of the groups that you belong to has admin privileges to a specific application like documents, then this member, demo user, has admin privileges. So it's basically saying this group, board member, has no special privileges, but this group has admin privileges to documents. If any of them, it's kind of an or situation. If any of these has admin privileges, then this user has admin privileges for that particular application. It's kind of the opposite, though, if we set up none privileges. So if you remember in Group Manager, we had those three options. We had no permission, none; normal permission, kind of read only. You can just see things, you can't necessarily change them. And then admin, which was full capability to change, add, delete, all that kind of stuff. So let's say we have a group that has no permission to view documents at all. So in fact, let me just go through this really quickly so it's a little more visual. I'm going to go in and I'm going to create a group. And there's not really a good use case for what I'm going to show you here, but it's more of an example. So I'm going to set up a group. And I'm going to say this group is denied documents. In other words, this group will have no permission to even view. They can't even see the Documents app. So now when I save this, I will go over to the directory again, and we'll go back into demo user and go to the member groups. And so now we have this situation where we could have a conflict where we've got document manager and denied documents. If I click denied documents, let's say I just click denied documents, now with no other settings, just denied documents, this particular member cannot even access the document listing. They can't even see any of the documents. They can't even go into that application. If I check document manager, now this group, document manager, says you have admin permission, admin privileges to documents. So how does that play out? Well, in this case, any group that has any kind of privileges to the application, like normal or admin, will allow this user to access documents in this case. So it looks at the two of these and says, does either of these give this user permission? Yes. Document manager gives them permission. Then they have permission. It's kind of the opposite for denied. What it says is, if you really want to deny this person access, then any group they belong to, all the groups they belong to, all these groups would need to have none set for documents in order for that to hold up. Once you give them any group that has privileges to an application, then they get those privileges. So it's an any versus all type of situation. So one more time, I'll just go through that again. In order to grant a user permission, they just need any of these groups to have those privileges to that application. Specifically admin privileges if you're trying to give them admin privileges. In order to deny them access to it, every group they belong to has to have none set for that application. They cannot belong to a group that gives them any permission whatsoever in order for this type of setting to work and deny them. So none is an all situation. All the groups you belong to must be set to none in order to restrict you from having access to that application. Whereas any permission, like normal or admin, all you have to do is belong to one group that gives you that privilege, and you've got that privilege, even if other groups you belong to are set to none. So that's probably the trickiest part of groups. And that's not a real common situation. Like I said, the setting up of a group to deny people to access to documents is less common. But I did want to go over the difference between trying to deny someone access through grouping or trying to give someone, for example, administrative access through grouping. Giving them administrative access just takes one. Denying them, you got to make sure every group they're in is set to none for that app, or they're going to have access. So that is pretty much everything to do with Group Manager that you need to know to set up a new group and to add members to it and to use it for giving them special privileges or restricting items like we talked about, restricting a specific item like a news story or a calendar event or a document and restricting it to only a certain group so only a certain group can see it. or grouping for things like mail members when you go into send an email and you say, I just want to send it to this one group. And actually, there's another option for that I'll show you really quickly in Mail Manager. When you are setting up, for example, a mail forwarder, you might want to set up a mail address like manager. This is an example here. Right now I have it set up as a custom list. But this list of recipient, or the list of send to, it can be a custom list where you would just enter the email addresses individually. But you can also send it to a group. So I could say, I want this to go to the manager group. And now everyone who's been assigned to this manager group in their profile will receive email that's been sent to manager@hoaSpaceTutor.com. Now, they do have to subscribe. That's a whole separate issue. In order to be included in that forwarder, they need to make sure they go into their profile and set up their email options to subscribe. And that would be this guy right here, email sent to forwarders for groups, clubs, or committees that include me. If they don't have this set, that forwarder would not include them, even though they're in that group, because that specifically is a mail forwarder. And so they have to be opted in for mail. That's a whole other tutorial, but it does give you another usage. If I go back, this is another usage for having groups strictly for the effect of grouping. There's no change in privileges here or anything. It's just a way of saying, I want to, just like sending an email to a group, you can set up a mail forwarder that just goes to that group. So so those are all the usages for the Group Manager. I hope you found this tutorial helpful, and thank you so much for watching.